So, hi everybody, and welcome to another episode of In Conversation With. If you're joining us over on the Azure Live Twitch.tv channel, then thanks so much for tuning in. Please do click the follow button. That way you'll get notified next time we go live with more content. Equally, if you're watching this on catch up, thanks so much. Please do like the video and give the channel a subscribe if you can. That is really appreciated. Okay, so my next guest on this episode is a UK field CTO at Nerdio. He's a Microsoft MVP, and he's also the co-founder of the Azure Virtual Desktop community, as well as being a blogger and a fantastic community leader. With that being said, I'd love to welcome my next guest on this episode as Mr. Neil McLoughlin. So, hiya Neil, how you doing?
Hey John, I'm good. How are you doing?
Very good, very good. And it's take two of this video, of course. So for those, so huge thanks for coming back on and doing another take of this video.
Not a problem.
I think we had a great conversation last time, and I think I had audio for about the first 10 seconds. So I was extremely disappointed when I realised I'd really messed something up. But no, huge thanks, Neil, for coming back on and giving it another go. So, obviously, since we last spoke, there's been some fantastic announcements in the community. So, certainly around Azure Virtual Desktop and Windows 365. But before we kind of delve into all that goodness, I don't know if you just want to give yourself a little bit of an introduction for those that might not know who you are.
Yep, sure, absolutely. I just want to say, if you want to practice your lip reading skills, just go back and look at the existing video. But yeah, my name's Neil McLoughlin. I'm based here in Manchester in the UK. As you just mentioned, I'm currently the UK field CTO for Nerdio. Been here, it's probably about month number 5 now, something like that. So still quite new to the role, still quite kicking in. As you mentioned, I'm also a Microsoft MVP, very much involved with the community. So yeah, like to keep myself very busy.
No, you do, and I think it's fair to say some of the content that you've got coming out is phenomenal at the moment. Neil, you're doing a fantastic job. I think it's fair to say. So, in terms of your working environment at the moment and where you currently are with the community, you're obviously doing a fantastic job with Nerdio at the moment. You're doing some great things with the community. How did that come to be for you, Neil? What got you started into the industry, and how did you kind of end up where you are now?
Yeah, it was quite a long story. I've been there nearly over 20 years, so it's quite a long journey. But yeah, obviously, I've always loved computers, pretty much since I was a kid. Probably since I think I got my first PC when I was like 12 years old, something like that. And yeah, so I started my career over 20 years ago, just doing sort of basic desktop support and rollouts and stuff like that. Again, fell even more deeply in love with computers. Went the usual route of doing like Windows NT4, MCSEs and that kind of stuff. Progressed from there into doing server support roles. So I probably spent around 10 years doing server support, kind of third line support for very large companies. I think your likes of the sort of Unilever, Department of Work and Pensions, all that kind of stuff. So I guess I've always pushed myself to go the extra mile. Because I love technology so much. As soon as I get my hands on it, it's kind of like, right, I want to go deep. I want to go really, really deep. So I like to sort of grab everything that I can do and trying to learn as much as I can. So I spent 10 years doing server support to quite a sort of an advanced level. And then I got involved with the desktop side because I always had it in my head like, oh, these desktop guys, they don't know that much, they're just desktop guys. And then I found Citrix. So at this time, I still probably wasn't involved with the community. We're probably going back 10 years here. Yeah. So again, so there's quite a common thing within Citrix where people accidentally fall into it, kind of thing. It's not one of those things you people tell, oh, I want to be a Citrix guy. It's one of those things that you generally fall into. So I was doing a service support role at a company, and as usual, the Citrix guy left. No one knew how to work out what the Citrix thing was. So I basically just jumped in and said, okay, I want to have a look at this because, again, that's me. I want to learn everything I possibly want to. So I started getting involved with that. Again, learned everything I possibly could do, did lots of exams, set up labs, all that kind of stuff. Again, still not doing much community stuff. And then I did support that Citrix environment for probably for a few years. This is going back to like Citrix Presentation Server 4.5 running on Windows Server 2008, I think it was at the time. So still quite a long time. I was maybe in Server 2003, I can't remember. Still quite a long time away anyway. And then I got to that stage where it's right, okay, I want to go from support into consultancy. Because at that time, all I'd done was support and administration. So I went away and did all my, at the time they called CCE exams, Citrix Certified Enterprise Expert or something like that. I can't remember the top of my head. It's like a set of 6 exams, quite difficult, not easy at all. So I went away, did all those, and then managed to get into my very first Citrix consultancy role.
Sure. Okay.
And then that was probably thinking back around the time that I wanted to start getting involved with the community stuff, because again, it was a new type of focus for me, where I had to learn different skills and different skill sets. And when I started looking around, it was kind of like, oh, all these people who I'm researching, they all seem to be involved with this thing called community. What's all that about then? And again, and there goes another rabbit hole that you sort of
I know what you mean,
that you go down. So from there, I started getting involved with the Citrix community. So started going to the sort of UK Citrix user group events, started blogging on the regular basis, and then still kind of doing things from a distance, because I'm still do this thing called imposter syndrome, as in I don't deserve to be here kind of thing. These guys they almost know much more than I do. So started going to these events, and then I saw this event pop up called EVC, which was like expert to experts conference. Straight away, the name expert to experts, no, I don't deserve to be there. So again, I'm just going to sit at the back and watch. And these events, I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but
I think I have. I've seen them pop up a few times over the years. But I've never been to any of them. So
these events all around Europe, essentially. So they go to a different place every year. Really cool, really friendly event. So again, I thought, right, okay, I'm gonna do this. So I went to Expert to Experts conference, and the first time I went there, it kind of just blew my mind, because all these people who I sort of looked up to as like real gods and geniuses, got in chatting to them, and they were like just normal people. And I'm like, okay. And then you sort of watch the presentations, you go away. So I did that probably as a spectator, probably for 2 or 3 years. Continue to blog, continue to go about on Twitter now and again. And then again, after a few years, I think, okay, maybe I'm at a stage now where maybe I could do some presentations or something like that. So worked on a few pretty good customer deployments. And so I did my very first presentation. I mean, going back, this is probably only 2 or 3 years ago now. And I did my very first presentation at the Citrix UK Citrix user group. I did a customer case study. Very, very, very nervous, as you can imagine.
Absolutely.
Very, very first time presenting, but again, people were awesome. I mean, Jim Moyle was there to sort of help me along with it, the rest of the community and stuff as well. And got in front, and it's kind of got in there, going up there, nerves. You get going, and I was like, okay, this is not so bad after all. And that was my first presentation, and that year I think I did 10. So just went crazy with lots of different presentations and stuff, and things just took off from there, essentially. So that was the start of my community involvement.
Yeah, and it's like you say, isn't it? I think, it resonates with me what you're saying there. You're kind of on the peripherals. That imposter syndrome is such a real thing, because you're kind of watching all these people doing brilliant things, and you think, well, okay, I know a bit about that. I know a bit about this. I wouldn't consider myself to be an expert, but then, like you say, everybody is pretty much in the same arena. We're all learning these technologies as we go, and there's And I guess that's the kind of, I mean, people do speak about that quite a lot, which is great to see, because it kind of encourages those coming into the industry learning things new for the first time, and actually realizing, look, you're not on your own. There's lots of people learning these things. There's lots of people that you do hold in high regard as those experts, that look, they do suffer with the same, doubts and things like that, that kind of prevent them. But equally, it's a great way that you kind of pictured that to actually get started, where, absolutely fine. Take a back seat, watch what people are saying for a little bit of time, build up that momentum to when you want to get stuck into the community. But I mean, what have you got out of the community, Neil, in terms of, since you started doing, this community focused and presentations, and got in with the what is now the AVD community? What does it mean to you as an individual, and to the wider audience of community?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it means so much from a personal and professional perspective. Personal, because I've met so many great people. I've met people who call friends. Been to lots of events, hosted lots of events. Just had a really, really great time over the past 2 years, sort of building the community up. And I can't wait to get. I mean, most of it's been virtual, because by when I really started to go big, that was just when COVID kind of kicked off. So we've still not really got to a proper physical event yet, especially since I've been involved with kind of Azure Virtual Desktop, because I only started getting involved with AVD when sort of COVID kicked off.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, absolutely.
So I'm really, really looking forward to getting back to some in-person events, hopefully towards the end of this year. I think definitely beginning of next year. So yeah. I mean, from a personal perspective, huge. Obviously, I mean, the downside of it, and I will mention it because people need to know about it. It sucks your time. It's so much extra. I mean, I luckily I have a very understanding wife and family. Most of my kids are kind of like grown up now, so they go off and do their own thing and don't really want to be involved with us.
Sure.
I'm sure you have something similar where you don't really need to commit as much time as you did previously to sort of family time. But yeah, I mean, my wife's understanding about it as well. But yeah, I mean, sometimes it can take up a whole weekend or a whole evening. Even during the week, sometimes I'm start here working till 10 o'clock at night working on stuff, because obviously you still need to do your day-to-day job as well. And from a professional perspective, it's massively boosted my career. I would not be sitting here today in my current role if it wasn't for the community stuff. I can honestly, hand on heart, say that. That's what's driven my career, and this is why I'm so passionate about recommending other people do it as well. Because if you don't have to go all in like I did, but even if you just put that extra little effort in to learn something new, communicate with different people, just get your name out there, it just means so much. I mean, I've seen lots and lots of stories of exactly the same thing happening time and time again. And if you go back and look at the blueprint of all these people who have been successful, it's all exactly the same story. Picture a vision of where you want to be, look at what you need to do to get there, and just go for it. That's the thing. I mean, I think I gave you an example, I think during our last chat, about there's a guy, I've got a mental blockage and I can't remember his name, where he'd been trying to break into the cloud stuff, right? But he's you know if they're talking about the guy who works at Knowsley Council. I've got a mental blockage.
Oh, is that Chris? Yeah,
Chris. So I've been kind of watching him because I've been intrigued to see what happens, because I saw this coming purely from what he's doing. And what he did was he basically just threw himself into the community. Every user group I went to, he was there. Every Twitter comment or LinkedIn post, he was there. He was literally just threw himself in the community. And I think when we did the last recording, he was still doing that, but he's still not got himself a job doing Azure stuff. I know he posted last week he's got a job at HDG as a Azure SME. To me, that's like amazing, and he did exactly what you need to do to get where you want to be into your career. So that's my message.
That's that is a really good example, actually, Neil, because it's one of those things I get asked quite often, like, how do you get into it? How do you start blogging? How do you do this? It's like, literally just go for it. And Chris is a fantastic, point that you raised there, because I speak with Chris quite frequently still on Twitter. We tried to set something up, a monthly event, the cloud community thing. So we're it's early days with that. But yeah, I mean, it's literally, if you want it, yeah, I can't, agree with your words more. Set that vision, go for it. Just go for it. I think when I was on a podcast with Sarah Lean and Jamie, a good couple of months back now, but it was all about blogging. How do you get started? And people have that tentative nature of, I don't want to put anything out there just in case it's wrong, or I'm not sure how people will react to it. I mean, look, the reality there is probably nobody's going to read it for the first however long you're going to be blogging. I mean, people still don't read my blog. I just keep blogging and blogging and blogging. Yep. It's just get it out there. Just get it out there. You'll form those good habits, I think is probably fair to say. And like you say, then looking at somebody like Chris, turning up, making that effort, going to the user groups, getting involved, asking questions. It's a great point to raise, of how do you kind of get into it. Before you know it, like you said earlier, you're surrounded with people that, look, you start to call them your friends, because you kind of do know people on that kind of level then, don't you? So, I mean, it's a really, really sort of insightful journey, really, isn't it, I guess? And
it is, definitely. I mean, do you want to hear something crazy? 2 years ago, I could not get a job doing cloud stuff because I didn't have any experience. I was working in an on-prem environment. I applied for multiple Azure roles. I did all my certifications, so I had my Azure expert certifications and all that stuff, and couldn't get a job. No one would even look at me because I didn't have that experience. So again, I made a pivot moment. I committed to it. And that's when I saw this thing called at the time, Windows Virtual Desktop appear.
Sure.
And I was sat there like, okay, I'm trying to break into cloud stuff. And there's this thing called Windows Virtual Desktop, which is EUC focused. I'm an EUC guy. I want to get into cloud. Put two and two together. Go for it. Go and code.
Yeah.
So started blogging, started writing, started reading about it. I basically just sucked in all the information I possibly could. And again, on the back of that, I got approached for a job by New Signature, and they were looking after a primarily Citrix, but also Windows Virtual Desktop architect, because those Citrix skills that I had, obviously, quite a lot of them move over into the Azure Virtual Desktop side as well. So massive kudos to sort of New Signature for giving me the chance, because again, I didn't have any. You couldn't really time because it's still a brand new product. But yeah, I mean, worked there as a sort of a Windows Virtual Desktop architect, and at the beginning of that, that's when I started the Windows Virtual Desktop community stuff, because I wanted to write about what I was learning at the time there and experiences and stuff like that. So, and that just completely took off. That really, really went like, wow, this is like, we're onto something big here. So we built that up. That's still going strong today. It's still growing every week. Still grows all the time. We've got a lot more stuff planned in that. But I mean, if you look at this from a very high level overview, the simplest way I can explain it is building blocks. Sure. We just constantly build on top of that, and everything equals into something else. So as from the sort of Windows Virtual Desktop community, I got my MVP for doing stuff with that. And then from my MVP, I got this job as UK field CTO for Nerdio. So rewind all the way back, all that stuff comes from community. For taking in knowledge, learning that information, and resharing that information in a way that everyone else understands it. That's it.
I guess it's showing to a future employer that you're not there. Like, I guess if people are applying for cloud jobs and all that you've got is really a 2-page CV, with look, I've done some of this stuff. Look, we know the cloud world is ever expanded. You've got to constantly show that learning. I mean, there's no greater way surely than showing you're working. This is me learning the stuff. This is me talking about the stuff that I'm learning about. And before you know it, you do that for so long, then you are helping others. You are showing that you're that kind of thought leader to a certain extent. You're a community leader. You are kind of encouraging others to follow in your footsteps. And I don't know, I think for me, as if I were an employer, that it's that caliber of person, that aptitude to turn yourself to do some, put yourself out there, say, look, I don't know it all, but I'm happy to show you how I'm working my way through all of this journey. And that's what everybody does in the community, I guess, isn't it? And look, we all learn from each other, and we all kind of bounce off each other and see what we're all up to. And
I mean, these days you have to, don't you? I mean, if you rewind back just 10 years, you could go out there, read a load of books, and know everything pretty much, right?
Yeah.
You can't these days. So to me, the role of a IT guy has changed dramatically. It used to be kind of like, well, you just need to know what you need to do to support the role. These days, you just can't know everything. And I think that skill of being able to adapt quickly and being able to take in information and learn it at a very rapid pace is just so important these days. I mean, you get some IT people, which I would call like no offense to these kind of people, but like the 9 to 5 crowd, who just want to basically go away, do their 9 to 5 job, know what they need to know to do basic support, and then that's it. They're done. It's not a passion for them. I guess you could describe people like you and me, and a lot of people out there whose IT for them it's just a job. Right.
I think it's a good point, though, Neil, to raise, because I'm pretty sure I've been one of those people at time. I've worked personally in the IT industry for pretty much 20 years now, I guess. And I guess there's nothing wrong with being that 9 to 5
no,
person.
Absolutely not. No.
But if you want to push it to that next level and you want to grow yourself, then there's no way around it. Yes, you can do some study during working hours if your employer allows you to do that, which hopefully today the answer is yes, of course they would. If they don't, then you might want to rethink who you're working for is probably the best way. But yeah, I think you're right. I think it is that passion, isn't it? It's that, if you've got the passion for it, you're not going to look at it as a 9 to 5. You're going to look at it as this is part of who you are. And, like you say, you're there to 10 o'clock at night. And I bet you're quite happy to do that. I'm betting.
Absolutely. I love it.
Yeah. It's not like you walk away thinking, oh my God, another day not finishing at 10 o'clock.
No, mate, I don't sit there and watch the clock at all. I mean, to me, I know it sounds horrible and bad, but to me, I don't really have a work-life balance. I'm not like, right, I'm going to start at 8, finish at that time. I'll just do it whatever I feel like. And some days I'm sitting for 12 hours. Some days I may just sit back a bit and only do 6 hours. Other days I may start at 6 and then work right through till 10 o'clock at night. It just depends on what I'm working on and how I'm feeling at the time. And that's what I love about the IT industry as well. You can do that as well. So it's
no, absolutely. But like you say, everybody's different the way that they work. But I guess it's just find that passion, find the thing that you love to do. And I think it's fair to say you'll soon find that actually it's not a job. That 9 to 5 that you think you might be in at the moment, it turns into, actually, I quite enjoy this. This is fun. This is part of my life. But I mean, let's switch tracks slightly. Let's talk a little bit about Nerdio, because I know that you moved over to Nerdio a few months back now, and you're doing some fun, obviously, being in the community, joining a few user groups, including the WVD, AVD user group. I've seen a number of Nerdio demos, and it's a hugely fantastic product. I don't know if you want to give us a quick overview of, what you do with Nerdio, what Nerdio is, and, we can take it from there if that's all right.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I got involved with Azure Virtual Desktop pretty much from day one when I went to work in New Signature. One thing which became very apparent very quickly is, especially on the pre-versions, it was pretty difficult to maintain and deploy.
Sure.
I mean, for a skilled Azure person, may not have been so difficult, but for someone coming from a EUC background into sort of Azure Virtual Desktop and this whole new world thing to me, which was cloud, I struggled a lot. It was a humongous learning curve for me.
Sure. Yeah.
And at the time, I started to notice this tool called Nerdio, and at the time, I was also deploying a lot of environments with Azure Virtual Desktop when I was working for New Signature. And I was watching these guys called Nerdio, and I was like, these guys are like fixing all the problems that I'm coming across. So like literally you start there tapping away, this problem again, blah, blah, blah. And then you see a tweet from Nerdio, it's got a new release. In this release, we've introduced this. And I'm like, oh man, I so wish I could use that product.
Yeah.
It was kind of like that, and that was pretty much constant for a year. And then the products evolved, continued to get better and better, and I never really took my eyes off it. And then I was quite friendly with Baz Van Kam anyway. He's the EMEA field CTO. And then he randomly approached me. So at the time, I was at New Signature. I wasn't looking to move at all. I loved that job. It was a brilliant team that we worked on some really, really interesting projects. I wasn't even entertaining. I was like, do you know what? I'd be quite happy to stay here probably for the rest of my career, doing this type of work. And then Baz approached me and he's like, would you be interested in coming to work for the Nerdio? I was like, at the time I said no, because I'm quite happy where I am.
Yeah.
So he kept on and on, now and again, are you sure? Blah, blah, blah. So the more I thought about it, the more I was like, okay. So, because sometimes in life you have to take because at the time as well, New Signature were merging with Cognizant.
Yeah.
Who was obviously quite a large company, you could say. And I'd worked for large companies all my life. And I went to work for Cognizant, New Signature, because they were quite smallish, so you still get that friendly team feel with them and stuff like that. And then they migrated over to Cognizant, and then it's like, okay, so I'm going to be like number of one of 220,000 employees or whatever it was at the time. Do I really want to go back there? No. So I looked into this role a bit further, had a few more chats with Baz, had a chat with the CEO, had a chat with all the sales guys, and decided to go for it. Sometimes these opportunities come in front of you, and it's like, okay, now's the time. And obviously, Nerdio is still, I would say, a startup company. They're only 2 years old, really. So I've never worked for a startup before. I'm number one UK employee, so I look after everything within the UK. And as I said, it's a role. I've gone from consultancy to a UK field CTO. So essentially, what Nerdio does is we make deploying and managing Azure Virtual Desktop ridiculously easy. So that's the first point that we do. We have a really, really nice GUI interface with lots of scripting on the back end and stuff like that to take away the pain that you normally get when you deploy Azure Virtual Desktop natively. And secondly, it's the auto scaling engine. So again, the native auto scaling within Azure is it's not easy to maintain. There's a lot of Azure runbooks, and even then it's quite limited in its functionality. Sort of Nerdio has his really, really bespoke auto scale engine, which makes, it saves customers massive amounts of money. I see the cost savings on the back end, and like the top customer was saving them, like, for example, $250,000 a year. And
is it worth digging into a little bit, Neil? Just explaining that whole mechanism of how you're saving that money. What actually are we doing? Is it a simple case of sort of deallocating VMs when they're not in use, or is there more to it that Nerdio does? What's the general premise behind that kind of cost saving?
Multiple ways. So you can look at it from a business perspective, as in the time savings, and you can look at it from an actual compute cost. So business benefit, obviously, stuff like image management, user session management, all that kind of stuff. We save companies time there. For example, if I'm a business person, I've got an IT guy, I go out, ask him to create an image. It may take him a day or two to create that, because you've got to go away, create the VM, log on to the VM, install the applications, sysprep it, all that kind of stuff. We do that in Nerdio automatically for you in the console. So you can reduce that down from like 1 or 2 days down to like maybe 1 to 2 hours. Maybe I think the fastest I've done it is in 2 hours. I think that was from the demo that I did at the Azure user group.
For sure,
where we went from literally from nothing to a host pool to connect to within 2 hours. So that's quite good. So you got the cost saving benefit from your IT guys there, and also you don't need to employ like highly skilled sort of Azure guys to go and deploy all this stuff for you. So you get money savings there, and then there's the actual real cost savings in these sort of compute storage. So we do auto scale savings, where we'll switch off all your stuff when you're not needing it, for example. So I'll tell you a typical example. So a customer came to me yesterday. He's got 1,000 personal desktops, right? He's using those on a 1-to-1 ratio of the user. So what benefits can you give me? So, okay, so I said to him, well, what do you do with your desktops at the moment? Nothing. We just leave them running 24/7. Okay.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So if you think that's probably, I don't know, and these guys are developers as well. So they may only go in there like, I don't know, 2 to 3 hours a day, maybe potentially. So he said to you, look, okay, what can we do for you? So we said, right, using Nerdio, what we can do, we can configure the auto scale settings to basically just switch off those VMs at either predefined times, or what we worked out with this guy is we're going to switch the VMs off permanently until the users need them. Okay, so you're only paying for that as your compute when you actually need it. So these guys said to him, right, okay, just use a logoff script to shut down the VM. Nerdio has additional functionality that it will detect VMs in a shutdown but not the allocated state, and it will automatically deallocate those VMs for you. Okay, and then you use the start VM on connect feature to connect that, to power that PC on when you need it. Right.
So some of those are actually quite new features within Azure as well, aren't they? Is my understanding. So it's cool. It's like you said earlier, we're constantly evolving these things, and it's just great to kind of hook into those things as they come out of, I guess, or when they go into public preview and come out into GA, then we can actually start to work with them with customers. And yeah, I mean, that's great to hear. I mean, I get that whole image creation. That is can be a time consuming and quite a laborious process if you've got, a company that's got multiple applications to get installed onto an image. And yeah, I mean, it's cool to see. And like I say, I've seen the Nerdio product demonstrated a number of times, and unfortunately, I've yet to work with it on a project, but I'm sure I will at some point fairly soon, with a bit of luck anyway. But so I mean, that whole thing where Nerdio go, and I think from my perspective as an outsider looking in, it's certainly one of those leading tool sets around AVD at the moment in terms of management and the capabilities, like you say, and the capabilities that have been built in. I think last time we spoke, Neil, you were just kicking off the hackathon with Nerdio with kind of getting community content and sort of scripted actions and things like that brought into the product. I mean, how did that go? Have you had a lot of feedback on that? Are some of those things there now? Where are you with that?
Yeah, I mean, it went well. Not as not as big as we expected, to be honest with you. No, we had like 300 people entered, 100 people signed the NDA, and we had like 10 submissions. So, bit surprising, to be honest with you. But now we got some good feedback from it. We got some good ideas to put into product. So, definitely worth doing. But yeah, it was definitely an interesting experience to do. That's for sure.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, things like that are only going to grow and learn. You can learn from and move forward with anyway. But I mean, obviously, the elephant in the room now. We've had this, what I guess is quite a large announcement from Microsoft in Inspire last week in terms of the Windows 365 Virtual Desktop. I mean, I don't know if you want to give us your kind of overview. I appreciate that you've probably been sat on this for a little while, Neil, both with your Nerdio hat on and MVP hat on. But I mean, do you want to give it to us in layman's terms what the key kind of differences are? That would be quite cool to know.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So yeah, as you mentioned, Windows 365 got released, or officially announced, sorry, part of the Inspire conference. So it will actually be released on the 2nd of August. So Nerdio, we've been working with Microsoft on this very closely for the past 6 months. We're one of the only 4 ISV partners who have been day one release for it. So we've been working very closely with sort of Scott Manchester on sort of integrating that into Nerdio, essentially. Okay, so what is it? Right, so Azure Virtual Desktop is obviously Windows 10 multi-session. You're based on consumption about what you use, essentially. So a very high-level overview of sort of Windows 365 is it's more go back to the normal pricing model as a service. So it's a fixed price service, okay, for personal desktops, essentially. That I would describe it as. There's 2 versions of it. There's an enterprise version, which you can use, which you can plug into your existing environment, or there's a business version, which is essentially just a VM, with no access to your existing environment at all. So you can just log on to it with your existing Microsoft 365 account and just launch your sort of local applications or install any applications you want on it as well. So we're basically moving from a consumption model to a fixed price model on a one-to-one user ratio. So that's what it is from a sort of very high level overview.
Okay, so that's pretty cool. And I guess, some of the flexibilities that you get with running AVD, you said it's a 1-to-1 ratio. So AVD obviously offers Windows 10 multi-session, and no doubt
Correct.
Windows 11 multi-session when that comes out. Whereas the personal desktop that you get with 365 is a 1-to-1 only thing at the moment. And that user gets to log on and install any application they want, or I'm presuming you can control it.
The way you treat it as you would do as a physical desktop. Okay,
sure.
So for the business version, you need to just log onto it and then either download and install any software that you need on it. Then when you log off, that software is there because it's your personal desktop. Okay. For the enterprise version, that's more the way you would do it in an enterprise environment. So think kind of SCCM client, think Microsoft Endpoint Manager, think Intune, for example. So it would be managed as you would manage a physical PC. Okay, so your same security policies, your same sort of Windows update cycles, all that kind of stuff be managed the way you manage that one. So it's a different way of managing them. Obviously, when we talk about Windows Azure Virtual Desktop, most environments that we deploy is very much image management based, especially run for the auto scaling stuff. So for them, it's complete shifting focus of how you manage those desktops. And this is, I've noticed Microsoft generally over the past 12 months start to shift that focus, because previously what you see when you walk into customers' environments is they'll have a separate team who do different stuff. You'll have a team who manages the physical PCs, you'll have a team who manages the mobile devices, and then you'll have a team who manages the VDI estate. I think Microsoft vision and where we're going with this is they want one central team to manage everything. So everything managed by that sort of Intune and Microsoft Endpoint Manager console. I guess that's their long-term strategy and future, and certainly this is a big step heading to that for them as well.
Do we know yet? Because I know one of the big things with AVD was in terms of you had to have those physical virtual domain controllers, those legacy type authentication domain controllers, Active Directory domain services sat somewhere in a line of sight to your AVD. Now, I think I saw fairly recently that it's gone into either public preview or it's been released around just using Azure Active Directory for that identity piece. Do you know yet, Neil? Is that the case with with Windows 365? Is that the way they're going, or with the enterprise bit, do we still need to spin up those domain controllers?
Unfortunately, you still need to spin up those domain controllers. So that's only temporary. So for the Microsoft 365, it's just going to basically the business subscription doesn't support Azure AD Join. Okay, so that's always going to be a standalone workstation. Okay.
Sure,
you can't join that to domain, right? For the enterprise subscription, as it is today, that will only support full Active Directory domain services with Azure AD in hybrid AD join mode, right?
With you.
So if you are running today Azure Active Directory domain services, it won't support it, right? So that's not supported on the new solution. Now going forward, Microsoft released into public preview the Azure AD Join, which is new functionality. So that went into public preview for single session desktops on Azure Virtual Desktop last week. Right.
Okay. Yeah.
So that will probably be going out towards the end of this year, and then obviously once that hits GA, I presume then that will be merged into the Microsoft 365 service as well. So
yeah, sure. So I suppose, like you say, early doors is we are where we are right now, but there's a nobody knows what's coming, but there's a definite way forward.
There's a definite path. The path I see that is so we're going to have end of this year definitely Azure AD Join for single session Azure Virtual Desktops. Multi-session, I presume, will follow quite shortly after that, and then hopefully next year we'll start to see the Active Directory domain services disappearing,
Well,
But
yeah. I mean, it makes sense. I just didn't know with the announcements of Windows 365. I thought, oh, have Microsoft kind of done that announcement in, because I was thinking the whole PaaS side of things. How are we going to spin up domain controllers and hook them into our, 365 tenant, because they're managed in separate portals?
yeah, I
But
mean,
it's
I mean, a lot of people have been complaining about it.
mm,
I think Microsoft probably wanted to announce this as part of Inspire. I think
mm,
ideally they may want to have waited a bit longer until they had that Azure
yeah,
AD Join
sure,
there, because then they could have announced from day one release, you don't need Active Directory, you can just do
yeah.
this Azure AD Join. But I guess the timing just didn't work out.
Well, it's all cool. At the end of the day, it's great technology. It's
Absolutely,
moving
yeah.
forward. So
Yep.
it's no, as long as we know where we are and it's cloud compute at the end of the day. What we know this week will be different next week. We can
Yeah,
guarantee
I
that
mean,
much anyway. So
the thing is what people tend to forget about as well. Even if they announce tomorrow, oh yeah, we've now got a full Azure AD Join. Ask yourself, how many people out there are going to do that in their environments and take away all of the domain controllers? We've got too
yeah,
many legacy applications which require that sort of domain authentication that it's not going to work. So it's going to be a general path. Think like when you sort of doing SMB version 1 to 3,
mm,
for example.
yeah, sure.
We know the technology is there, but we can't really strip it out until we've got all the prerequisites gone. So
It's funny because that's been one of the things I remember, going back a few years now, having a meeting with a customer that turned around and said, look, I want to go completely sort of cloud, even down to, sort of having their devices on a unmanaged networks across their business units, literally have no managed networks, just, literally fire up your laptop, sign on to some wireless access point in their building and go completely cloud. It was one of those things that you said, and this was probably about 3 or 4 years ago now. It's like, right, okay, let's have a look at the applications that you've got. And they had things like AutoCAD, Pro Engineer that heavily relied on this big lump of data sat there on some SAN, with access control lists around it from Active Directory. And you think, well, okay, that makes sense, but you've got a lot of work to try and move this. And, but I think over the years, and certainly over the last 12 months, I've been kind of keeping an eye on some of those pain points, and you can start to see, look, this is the way that things are going. Clearly, this is the way that, and all those little gaps are slowly getting plugged. And, on the AVD side, that kind of legacy Active Directory domain controller thing that has been around since its inception we know it's probably going to be going away. But like you say, for what reasons? And I'm starting to see now that there's certainly, even with a hybrid join or even just an Azure AD join machine, then there are a number of technologies now within Azure that you can use to access those legacy applications as well. So there's, things are motoring along so quickly now that, I think we'll do some digital transformation and then redo the digital transformation
yeah, I mean,
at a later date.
it's going to benefit the new companies. I mean,
the
absolute number one common complaint that we get at the moment is for someone who's spilling up a completely brand new greenfield environment. They're like, why am I deploying a domain controller? Why am I doing this? We're like, so obviously, if you're doing that, and then after this Azure AD is released, then you don't need to spin up a domain controller. So you are going to be pure cloud stuff. No,
well, it's great to see. So, and it's really great insights. Really, thanks for that, Neil. I mean, we'll shift the focus now on in terms of our little conversation. So, I mean, we spoke about this briefly last time, but it's somewhere I always like to take the guess in terms of your history of your career through into cloud computing, where you are today with AVD and Windows 365 and Nerdio. I mean, what's next on the horizon from your point of view, Neil? Is there anything that you're kind of looking at into the distant future, thinking, I want to work into that area? It can be related, obviously, to AVD or something completely off the wall. Have you got those thoughts? What's next for you?
Not really. I mean, things change so quickly. It's hard to say where we're going to be in a year's time. So I'm still kind of relatively new to the Nerdio role, so I'm still trying to get my foot stuck in there and see what's happened. I mean, obviously, this where we are today is an amazing place to be, and I feel extremely lucky and privileged to be working. I am pretty much working at the forefront of the technology, because at Nerdio we release like 15 to 20 new features every month, for example.
Sure.
Okay, so we work very, very closely with the Microsoft engineering team. So I don't know where I want to be. At the moment, I'm 100% happy, 1,000% happy doing my role at the moment because it's a bit of everything. I speak to customers, I speak to engineering teams, I speak to product management teams. I get to play with technology all day long. I get to talk about technology all day long. So I don't know where I'm going to be in a year's time. I don't know where I'm going to be 2 years' time. I certainly don't know where I'm going to be in 5 years' time. So
what about from a tech perspective then? From a where's this leading to in terms of we know things like AI and machine learning is all starting to become more of a thing. I mean, do you see that playing in to the AVD workspace at all, or Nerdio? Do you see those kind of technologies?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, the stuff that's going on with sort of AI and predictive analysis is amazing. I mean, we haven't done it yet at Nerdio, and I don't see anyone doing it yet, but I can imagine, for example, so at the moment, if I want to configure autoscale settings, you have to go manually, kind of not, but you have to set some criteria. I'd imagine what we'll kind of see in the future is completely predictive auto scaling, where you don't really have to set anything, where something monitors everything in the back end and then just adjust that workload automatically for you, that kind of stuff. And yeah, I mean, I guess we haven't really seen AI break into the EUC world in a massive way yet. I guess that is coming. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, the AI and stuff like that is definitely on my list of stuff to look into a bit more. Obviously, not my focus in the moment, but I can definitely see it being a very, very, very exciting place to work in the future, especially in the EUC world. So
yeah, I think the only reason I mention that is because from my perspective, you see AI breaking into all these little areas. It's the typical thing again. With cloud compute, it was taking that traditional kind of sysadmin operations type of role and almost turning it on its head to say, well, now okay, we're dealing in a cloud space now, so you need to have this real breadth of knowledge. Plus, you need to do a bit of development type work in terms of coding and being efficient with how you deploy this infrastructure. And I'm starting to see that, I'll feel that from an AI perspective. Now, all of a sudden, we're getting these AI modules and machine learned modules and things that we can utilize in our applications that now all of a sudden, now do I need to become some form of a data scientist to glean those metrics from monitoring to, it's like,
I mean, I'm just thinking about it in the moment. So you can imagine a scenario, can't you, where you're working in your HR system. And you're adding a new user into the HR system, and then this little AI robot picks up. Would you like me to create that desktop for that person, or do you want me to do this for you? Do you want me to do that kind of predicted analysis? And it may say, well, what hours will this person be working, and where's it going to be located? And then things just go off and magically happen in the background.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what I envision.
It's very, very, very powerful, I think is probably fair to say, and it's just cool to see where we might all end up in a few years. Well, in the not too distant future. I mean, it's happening now, I guess, in certain respects.
I mean,
but
exactly.
It's just going to be a cool thing to kind of witness and see where it goes. And and I just wanted to see if it's kind of impacted, you from the perspective of the kind of viewpoint that you've got. Yeah, because I'm sure it will. It seems to be affecting everybody.
I mean, I was watching the Inspire conference just last week, and what you said there, like, I mean, people for years have talked about, oh, look at where we're going, look at where we're going, but look at where we are now.
Yeah.
It's when you think about the technology that's available today, it's absolutely mind blowing. I know you're involved with like the IoT stuff, and I mean, probably a lot of people don't realize how advanced all that stuff is right now. And
it's
the AI stuff.
It's like you say, it's mind blowing. Some of the things that you thought were, I thought, well, okay, I got it. You watch these videos, you watch the Inspire and the other keynotes from other vendors. You think, yeah, okay, it's kind of coming, but it's like, absolutely not. It's there. It's there to be used. It's there to be, kind of made use of. And I mean, that's the exciting. It's like you say, it's that thing of passion. Then it's like, so wow, really? That's quite mind blowing when you think of it. That I can do something relatively cheap, and I can have all of that power to make my application do something, using artificial intelligence. So. Exciting times, I guess, isn't it, going forward?
Very, very exciting times. I mean, this is why, man, I love working in the IT industry, because no day's ever boring, right? And the possibilities are pretty much unlimited. about what we can do and what we can achieve. So very, very, very exciting place to be.
No, absolutely. Well, Neil, we're kind of hitting around about the 50-minute mark now, so I mean we're doing well in terms of this conversation. And apologies again that we've had to re-record, but thanks so much for coming on to do it. I mean, are there any other little bits that you fancy just having a quick natter around now before we close off this recording, Neil?
Good question. No,
or any
really.
words of wisdom, or any words of wisdom that we'll leave.
Yeah, I mean,
you go.
Yeah, my words of wisdom are basically just pick up as much information as you can do. We're at I think a pivotal moment in the IT industry, I'd like to say. I mean, if you look back where we were 5 years ago, then look back where we were 3 years ago, then look back where we were 2 years ago, and then look what we are today. And when you think of it from that high level perspective, it's mind blowing. So in the back of my mind is always where we're going to be in 5 years' time. And if you want to break into the IT industry, or if you want to progress in the IT industry, there's so much information out there. There's a whole community of people out there who are willing to help and assist you. So if you want to get involved in the community, just do it. If you want to learn new stuff, just do it. There's a whole minefield of exams and certifications you can do to learn new information. I mean, what's great to see, like you mentioned about the AI stuff, is the amount of people who I've seen taking AI certifications just to get a foundation knowledge set. And it's the same with IoT stuff as well. I know you can do basic search in that as well. And just think outside the box. Just look outside you, what you do in your day-to-day job, and just look at what's possible, essentially. And when you start to think like that, with that sort of knowledge, of that mindset of just learning more and more and more information, the world suddenly becomes a very, very, very exciting place. So that's my little.
You're not wrong.
Piece.
I completely echo those thoughts, Neil. And I mean, it's great advice at the end of the day. Completely echo everything Neil said there. So I don't know why I keep speaking about you to you and then in the third party. That's a bit weird, isn't it? But there we go. That's what these videos do to you, I guess. But no, Neil, can't thank you enough for coming on again and having this chat. Keep up the fantastic work. I'll continue to support you from afar at the moment. Hopefully, we'll get to meet in person fairly soon.
Hopefully,
I'll buy you that beer and say hello properly.
Well, I think the next Northern Azure user group, I think they're actually doing that as a physical event on a canal boat or something. I did hear that, actually. I did hear they were up to something intriguing from Kirk. So that'll be an interesting one, I think. Definitely.
I hopefully they'll stream it. Yeah, hopefully they'll live stream it as their.
Hopefully, yeah.
So I can't see it being too far away now. I think, like you say, there are certain things kicking off. I'm certainly starting to see the odd one or two things come through from a work perspective of, meeting face to face. So, I'm sure we'll be there too long, and I'll buy you that beer, Neil. But
sounds good to me.
Until then, thanks again, Neil. Lovely to speak to you again. We'll catch up soon.
Cheers, John.
Cheers, Neil.